So the first talking point we do have, which is an important one, is obviously the Trailblazers announcing that they shut down Dame for the rest of the season. And I guess the question raised now, or the question to be posed, is where do they go next? Where to next for the Blazers? There was such promise for them at the start of the season. The way they started the season off, the way Dame was playing and how he played throughout the whole year. It's disappointing. So I'd like to hear your take on the situation, Marcus, and where you feel like the Blazers go from here. Do they build around Dame? Even though he wants to stay there, do they send him away, try and put him in a winning situation and rebuild and do a proper rebuild in this situation? What do you think?
My assumption, to jump to conclusion, the Portland Trailblazers, I am a massive fan of this organisation. I love the Trailblazer spirit, I guess, the culture there. But I think Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers, there needs to be a departure there. Personally, I think the Blazers, look, they've clearly gone the direction where they've gone young. They've brought in guys like Cam Reddish. They drafted Sharpe. Obviously, the emergence of Anthony Simons is incredible. He's having a terrific season. But then they got guys like Jabari Walker, who I think has real good upside for them, especially in the modern day NBA as a small ball type of power forward center. And Nas Little even, I think he has great potential there. So personally, I think that they should build around a Shaedon Sharpe and Simons backcourt, and then alongside that try to develop Cam Reddish to be the most impactful player he can ultimately be, because he still has plenty to give and he's showing signs. He's showing signs for them, which, I mean, if he's showing signs for them now, just think long term for next season. Personally, I just think they need way more to compete. I feel bad for Dame, but ultimately, I genuinely rate that call that they've built with those young players. And I've thought for ages, it's just in the best interest for both the Portland Trailblazers and Damian Lillard alike to kind of separate. And yeah, I know Dame Lillard prides himself on staying a Portland Trailblazer, but I think his career will go overlooked if he never really competes again for a championship. And I think that's very likely to happen if he stays a Portland Trailblazer, because to keep it blunt, they suck this season. They haven't been good at all. So yeah, I don't think it's the supporting cast to blame in this situation around Dame, because they are a lot of young players there. And I don't think it's Dame's fault because he's had a career season or the closest thing to a career season. I just think keeping Dame, it hinders these young players' development in Shaedon Sharpe, Simons, and Cam Reddish. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents with the Portland Trailblazers.
It's a good take, and it's definitely a fair take for sure.
Yeah.
I guess what I'll touch on is, you mentioned there about it not being obviously the fault of Dame or the supporting cast, because he only had what he had around him. But to me, I feel like the Blazers have let Dame down in a certain extent here, because again, they know they have a superstar talent who arguably has been one of the best performing point guards in this whole league this year, if you look at the advanced stats on it. And they know that they have a guy like this who's obviously in his early 30s and who's had his career best season, and you don't put the pieces around him. I get they struggle to attract free agents because they're a small market team. No one wants to go to Portland. They have to build through the draft. I get that. Obviously, that's why their team is so young. They're like the 8th youngest team in the league. But from my end, I feel like they haven't done enough to try and build the right pieces for him. Again, there's a multitude of factors as to why they couldn't do that. But you would need, in my opinion, you should try your utmost to not just put these young pieces around him. If you know you want to, if the intention's to contend and to try and win a finals or try to get to the finals, you need to try everything in your power. Whether it ruins a rebuild for 5 years, at the end of the day, when you have a superstar talent like Dame at your disposal and in your organization, you got to do everything in your power to try and get him a championship. You know what I mean?
100% agree.
And in my opinion, you kind of have to do what the T-Wolves did here in the situation that they had with Kevin Garnett. They respected each other a ton, that those two organizations, but I think there was a mutual agreement at the end of it. They let KG go, and they almost encouraged Kevin Garnett to leave and go to the Celtics, because they knew that, you know, we're probably not going to be able to attract X, Y, and Z in the free agency or in a trade. And the only way for you to achieve success is elsewhere, and you're too good of a talent to be wasted in a situation where you're not going to be able to perform. Like, what really makes me sad is you don't want to see a guy like Dame, a big-time performer who we've seen prosper in the biggest moments, the buzzer beater against OKC, his buzzer beater against the Rockets. Like, the guys like this are just too good not to be in the playoffs.
Yeah. No, 100%.
And by the time they get to a point where they could build something around him, it's too late. Even with the moves they made, like the whole thing with CJ McCollum, I think they probably should have made that move maybe a couple of seasons ago, extract more value out of CJ, and that could have maybe brought in some pieces that may have helped them contend. You know what I mean? But even I watched Kenny Beecham talk about this, and he threw up the idea of possibly looking at packaging Ant and Shea and seeing what you can try and leverage off them. Obviously, with the way Shaedon Sharpe has played in the last week and a bit, he had 37 and 7 today, mind you, on really inefficient shooting.
Yeah.
Could you put those two young guys in a package and see what you can get, to see if you can possibly, if the package is good enough where you think, damn, we could actually contend next year if we can pull something off.
Yeah.
Again, you don't want to really put your whole future on the line to try and win a title, but at the same time, when you have a guy like Dame, superstar talent, has been his superstar his whole career, you kind of sometimes have to consider it. But it'll be interesting, and I'm really excited, but also nervous at the prospects of seeing what the Blazers are going to do going forward. Hopefully they draft well again and see what they can package up to see how that all plays out.